Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the Blueprints for Belonging session. My name is Cynthia and I'm joined here with Zarina. And we're really looking forward to spending some time with you talking about intentional communities, of course, and especially focusing on how to build intentional communities. That's the focus of the Blueprints for Belonging, looking at the strategies and the models that are out there for how to do community. And I'm super excited to have Zarina on with us. We actually did a virtual tour of intentional communities with Zarina a few months ago, and there was a lot of interest in what she had to share. So I'm excited to dive in once again. And I'm getting a notice from StreamYard that I need to do something here. So let me see if that'll work. I want to make sure that we're live streaming all the places that we should be. Apologies, sometimes it takes a minute to get it working properly. Let me just go through here. All right, now I'm going to try this again with our sharing. Okay. All right. Okay. I think I'll start over now. Hello, everyone. Okay, I think we're streaming everywhere we should be. So welcome once again to the Blueprints for Belonging series. My name is Cynthia, and today we're joined with Serena. And I'm over here in Vermont in an intentional community where I live, and I think Zarina is over there in California, and very excited to learn more about what Zarina is up to with her variety of community projects. So I will just run through a quick presentation, and then I'm going to hand it over to Zarina to share. So once again, welcome. This is actually our third episode of the Blueprints for Belonging series, conversations on creating intentional communities. And if you've been following us for the past few months, we started our series by hearing from Jean Martin, who is sort of this elder in the communities movement and spoke about the development of intentional communities over a long timeline. And then we heard from Nicole Reese, who's kind of a younger mover and shaker in the movement, talking about village design and some of the more innovation, modern versions of eco-village living specifically. And I'm excited today to have Zarina with us because I think Zarina is tapped into another particular aspect of this movement, which is all about creating communities that have a strong mission and purpose towards healing and activism and righting some wrongs in the bigger society. So looking forward to how we can use intentional communities as a vehicle for positive change in this world. And this is an event that we're hosting on StreamYard. So hi, everyone on StreamYard. You have the ability to ask questions and leave comments. And of course, hi to everyone who's watching on our live stream social media channels. So for the folks in StreamYard, I really encourage you to use the comment box to have a conversation along with myself and Serena. And especially right now, if you could go ahead and find the chat box and just introduce yourself briefly. I'd love to know where folks are calling in from. If you live in an intentional community, let us know which one. And also let us know what you hope to learn or get out of the session. You know, why did you choose to take some time out of your day to be here? And I can see, yeah, Betsy and Rains. Hello, also from California. Yeah. Aw, beautiful. So go ahead and find the chat box and put in a little message for us there. And while you're doing that, I'll just share a little bit more about this event that you're participating in. So the Blueprints for Belonging series is a collaboration between the Foundation for Intentional Community, FIC, and an organization that I run called Community Finders, where we support people on their path towards community living. And FIC, if you don't already know, fantastic, decades-old nonprofit organization, really supporting the movement in some pretty critical ways, especially through their Intentional Communities Directory, which is a map of all the communities, as well as their online courses and events and bookstore and great educational resources to help people learn about community living in general. And of course, as a nonprofit, they always welcome your support to put on events like this that are free to join and by donation. And then over at Community Finders, we are focused more on specific programs, membership programs, and one-to-one consulting to support people on their community journeys. And we do that through myself doing one-to-one community matchmaking, helping people find communities to join that are a good fit for them, as well as through our two membership programs, the Community Finders Circle and the Community Founders Circle. So people who want to find or start new communities. All right, and that's the website over there, the Community Finders, communityfinders.com/founders. So there's a number of people here who are joining this event as part of our Founders Circle. So welcome to our members. So glad that you're here. All right, so I think that's just about everything. Yeah, it's my pleasure to have Zarina on and welcome her. As I mentioned earlier, we had Zarina on the other monthly event that I do, the virtual tour for intentional communities, and there was a lot of interest in what she had to share with us. So I'm excited to kind of go a level deeper with us here today. I'll read briefly from Zarina's bio. Zarina is the co-executive director of District Commons, which is a nonprofit working to amplify the emancipatory power of communities. Ooh, I love that. Emancipatory power of communities to create collective possibilities. And she is helping to steward multiple intentional community houses that center on the needs and wisdoms of formerly incarcerated individuals. And that's the Second Life Project, if you want to go and watch the virtual tour of intentional communities event that I think we did in March. So yeah, up to a lot of great work, and I'm excited to hear directly from Zarina. So I'll remove my screen share. Hey Zarina, big welcome to you.
Oh, it's so nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I love the Blueprints for Belonging as a concept. Is really wonderful. Great. Can you see my screen?
Here, I'll bring it up now. Now we can see it.
Great. Yeah, it's really lovely to be here. It's really nice to see lots of familiar names in the chat. So that's really great. Yeah, so today I am going to talk to you about a specific kind of blueprint for belonging, which is building community in the wake of incarceration. And I want to start off by just saying, for me, intentional community has been really transformative. I've been living in intentional community for 12 years and living in accidental community for longer than that. And I've really witnessed firsthand the ways that we can get free together, the ways that we can build things that would have felt impossible to build alone when we're in community. And so for anyone who's thinking about finding intentional community or building, I encourage you to keep going on your path. It can be really, really wonderful. So today, yeah, we're going to talk a bit about some of the explorations that we've had over here in the Bay Area in our sort of path of building intentional community. So I want to start off by saying that I'm calling in from what is known as Ohlone Land, presently known as San Francisco. Our community contributes a monthly voluntary land tax to the Segoria Te Land Trust, and we encourage others in California to do the same. I also want to acknowledge the many people and communities that have inspired this project and led the way in generations past. I want to witness those who are currently incarcerated, have become reincarcerated, and to those whose lives were lost waiting to come home. So just to introduce our community, it's a broad bunch of people. I just grabbed a few of us here. We have many cats, and I've just got one cat featured here today, but there's many humans and non-humans that are part of our community. And I want to sort of just start off by just introducing our sort of theory of change, which is that on finding ourselves in intentional community and having a lot of our sort of emotional and home needs met, we started to think about building windows where there once walls. So one of the things I think many people it's too small to read. Is that the feedback I'm getting?
Yeah, it is a little small. I wonder if there's a way to make it fuller screen, or I'm going to see if I can fiddle with something to make it
Okay. Yeah, I think as we found ourselves in intentional community, one of the things that I certainly noticed is that intentional communities tend to be accessible and open to specific demographics of society, and they're not really available to everybody else. And so I started thinking about this idea of building windows where there were once walls between sort of segregated and siloed parts of society. So I'm going to introduce Second Life. Don't worry if you can't read the text. I'll read it out for you. So Second Life is an autonomous, self-determined, intentional community project, and it's built around notions of transformation and empowerment with, by, and for formerly incarcerated humans. We are interested in alternative forms of justice and values. And we build homes that are centered around personal and collective transformation, healing, and what we call mutually assured autonomy. And what I mean by that is autonomy is hard to achieve alone, but together we can sort of mutually assure each other's autonomy. So I'm going to introduce a few houses. So Sigil is our first house. Sigil is a 5-bedroom place in Lower Haight of San Francisco. It's home to 6 individuals, and the residents are a mix of people coming out of long-term incarceration and not. Sigil is our flagship house for the Second Life project, and we've been going much more than 2 years now. Sorry, this is an old slide. We've been going for about 5 years. So you can just get a sense of the vibes here. You can see our cat, and I also want to introduce the Embassy, which is where I live. The Embassy is 12 years old. We have 12 bedrooms and 11 humans and some non-humans also. And the third place I'm going to introduce is Template House. This is our second home for people coming out of incarceration in San Francisco. It sits above 2 commercial spaces that are used as community hubs and sort of interfaces between the home and the public, which is a really lovely model, as it creates a lot of throughput and flow. This is what Template House looks like. It's a sort of historic Victorian in these very bright, vibrant colors that you often see in San Francisco. And I just want to show you a little map. So I don't know if you can see this on the small screen. Is that getting bigger for you?
Yes. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go.
Great.
There we go. So you can see the Painted Ladies up here, which is a sort of historic area of San Francisco. And our 3 houses, as you can see, are really close together. So they're close enough that you can run over and get tomatoes, which is a really nice distance for sharing and for kinship and collaboration. So we have a very, very sort of small, tight-knit group there. So this is Template House. This is the sort of vibes. You can see there's a lot of liveliness. It's a beautiful space. There's a lot of plants. We've got our little cat there. So those are the houses, and I just want to introduce the issue here for you. So around 162,000 humans are serving life sentences in US prisons. That's 1 out of every 9 people in prison, and California has the highest percentage of prisoners serving life. The very few of those that are found suitable for parole find themselves returning to an alien world. And what I mean by that is, there was no internet, there was no mobile phones when they were incarcerated. And so they're returning to a truly different world with self-driving cars and all sorts of things. They're also returning to one of the most expensive cities in the world and a society in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. And so it's a really challenging experience for people to come home. So the issue is, how do we build the social bonds that sustain life after carcerality but also after any kind of experience that keeps humans isolated from the kinds of kinship they need to not just survive but thrive. Okay, so I'm going to share our entry story, and I think Cynthia's got a YouTube video for you to watch. I couldn't get the audio to work, so so we're going to ask you to switch to Cynthia's audio.
Okay. Yeah, I'm bringing that up now. Let me get it. And it's the sigil one first?
Yeah, sigil.
Sigil?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
It's starting over. Today?
Well, I'm moving into a house. This is the official start of Second Life. I'm hopeful that we're creating a new ripple effect that will affect the community and the lives of other people other than my own.
Today is Sunday. We are about to go and move into our new house. So we have a house on Page Street that we're starting together. How are you feeling?
Feeling really excited. Let's do this.
So Kevin's just come out of transition housing an hour ago. Your bags are here. Everything we've got is here. And then we're just gonna walk. It's just 2 blocks away from here, from the embassy. And you're gonna meet some of your new housemates.
Look forward to it. I can't wait to venture out into this journey, see what I can learn. This is new for me, so.
We're in our new house.
Welcome to the house.
Okay, so what questions am I going to ask you? What does this house mean to you?
A new beginning. Absolute freedom. And knowing I have a lot of good friends.
Yay!
Yeah.
But
I guess for me, the house, it is a symbol of hope. I don't know, it's kind of weird because, I mean, it's just amazing how things just developed over the few months and how we got to this point. I mean, like, we had an idea, and the idea just gained momentum, and with hope and some work, and here we are. And now we're hopeful to build something better.
They can help others in the future too.
Yeah. And so that's what it means for me. It's like this is an environment of healing. We get past the difficulties of our past. Yeah. It's amazing.
Great. So I wanted to share that. So that's our origin story. That's how we got started. So that was the beginning of our very first house, Sigil. And what you saw there was Bert and Kevin moving in for the very first day. And I'm very glad we captured that moment because, 6 years later, a lot of wonderful and amazing and difficult things have happened. Okay, so you have our houses, you have the origin story. So I wanted to touch on a bit of our theory of change because this feels really important. It's not just about things that feel good. We really feel like we have an underlying mission. And so for us, we believe that the commons, which is our shared world, and all that it offers must be open to anyone who wishes to participate, care for, and contribute to the commons. It's our hope that returning citizens and formerly incarcerated people who are not always citizens are not just returning to the same systems that led them into a difficult trajectory, but actually have the sovereignty to return to a different social fabric that is centered around mutual aid, solidarity, and collective power. So I want to share this quote from this article by Stephen Powers, which I think captures the thing I'm trying to get at. So they say, "It's funny to appreciate the city from a jail bus, because it's that very city that's sending you away. And I mean all of it is sending you away. From the disciplinarians that fancy themselves educators, to the bullshit jobs that treat you like a crook from the first day, to the police who menace you everywhere you go. It would ultimately punish me for. There's no other way to understand it. And so for us, we were thinking about what would it look like if people, rather than returning from incarceration to the very same world that let them down, what would it look like if they were returning to a different social fabric, which centered collective care? And we wanted to create spaces where people coming out of incarceration could feel empowered to reshape society themselves, where their skills and their critical reflections of the world and their emotional intelligence are sustained despite and in response to surviving incarceration and other forms of alienation. And it's worked really wonderfully, actually. And what we have found in our houses, which are, again, half people coming out of incarceration and half not, is that in these spaces, everybody, not just our formerly incarcerated community, are able to find meaningful work and praxis, heal from traumatic experiences, and build independent community lifelines that help us all move beyond the themes of domination, competition, extraction, and rugged individualism that often dominates our worlds. So that's our sort of theory of change. And I just want to share a little bit of what it feels like. This is something that people often ask us. They can't quite imagine what it's like to be building home with people coming out of long-term incarceration. And so Cynthia's going to share a second video, which is just going to give you a sense of what it feels like in our homes. And I should say that the music is a song written and sung by Kevin, who you saw in the first video.
We have so many amazing moments in our community, and I often wish that we had more of a like window in for people so they can see.
Now I know you got your reasons for why you've been hurting so long in your life. You're searching for meaning, oh, but sometimes you just gotta move along. Oh, and I want you to know, baby, I'm gonna take it slow, 'cause I'm so crazy in love with you, baby. Sometimes I don't know if I should even breathe. Don't wanna scare you, don't wanna fail you. Oh, girl, I need you to believe.
Real quick, community has been nothing short of amazing, and that's what it truly has been, because it has been a plumbing, loving, caring, supportive, instructive. It has guided me. It has shown me. It has shared. It has devoted time and resources. It has done everything to help me succeed. And I want you to know and understand, girl, I've never felt this way as a man, 'cause I am so crazy. Sometimes I don't know I should even don't want to stay.
Oh my gosh, that's
Oh, girl, I need you to believe. Yes, I'm so crazy.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so it feels important to share the videos because, you know, we can present a good story, we can tell you all about what the buildings are like, but the coziness and the care is really the sort of fabric that's important to share, and I think that's only really captured in these videos or in our family dinners, which everybody is welcome to come to. If you're ever in San Francisco, all of our houses have family dinners and you're welcome to join. So yeah, just back to my slides, I just wanted to share our offerings. So we have put together a handbook for anybody if you're interested in building some version of this where you're at. We have a handbook with a little guide of how we got started and things like that. You can follow us on Instagram. We're also here to support you with sort of mentorship if anybody is looking for a bit of guidance or emotional support. And that doesn't have to be for people coming out of incarceration. We have also been in intentional community with people who've been homeless for a long time or coming out of ICE detention. We have foster care kids in our broader community. And so if there's any people who are interested in building these kinds of intentional communities that serve to unsegregate, please reach out. We'd love to support you in whatever way we can. I should tell you that we're in the process of trying to buy Template House. So we have incorporated a community land trust, and our goal is to transition these buildings into a community land trust that can hold these spaces in perpetuity to serve these communities. And we are looking for donors to help us with our down payment of about $500,000. So if you or anyone feels moved by this project and wants to donate or support us in whatever way, please do reach out. And that's it from me. And I'd love to hear from people and maybe we can chat a bit.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Zarina. Is there a good link that we should send people to if they want to donate or also get the handbook?
Yes. So we have, I'm just putting so we have two streams for fundraising. We have a community fundraiser. I just put the GoFundMe in the chat. And for anyone who's looking to donate a larger sum that maybe isn't ideal to put through a GoFundMe, you can just reach out and I'll just put my email in the chat.
Okay, great. Okay, good. commons@districtcommons.org.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Oh, well, I love learning just each time, like a little bit deeper or catching new things about what it is you're working on. So I guess based on your fundraising campaign, am I correct then that the houses you're operating in as a community, you don't own, but there's like a landlord, or how is it working now? And I love that you want to transition it all to a community land trust. That makes so much sense, and I hope it works.
Yeah. So Sigil is rented, and in some ways that's wonderful. It's a rent-controlled building, and so it's great in that way. Template was purchased for this purpose by some friends in 2019, and the sort of like the intention was, look, we'll buy this house, you build in it, and eventually we'll transition it over to collective ownership or some sort of land trust entity. And so this is part of that path that we have always been on. And so, yeah, it's pretty exciting, especially in a city like San Francisco where the, gentrification is really intense and affordable housing is getting harder and harder to find, to think that we can take some of these old, beautiful San Francisco buildings and transition them into entities that will preserve them as housing rather than a sort of commodity on the speculative market. So that's pretty exciting.
Yes, it's so exciting. It's so needed right now. I'm just really happy to know that you exist and that other people who are listening and watching can learn about this model and also think about ways that they too can participate. So I really want to encourage folks listening ask questions. You can just put your questions or your thoughts as a comment. Really encourage you to do that if anything comes to mind. Can you, because I know you have a handbook about how to replicate this model.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to just introduce some of like the first steps in that process for somebody out there who maybe has a house or doesn't have a house but wants to engage, like I don't even know how one would begin with. Do you like contact the prison? Is there like a certification process? Like what? Yeah. And I can bring slides if you want me to.
Yeah, I don't know if it's useful to people. I can run through a sort of guide, but certainly if you are someone who has a building or wants to start something like this is sort of like roughly how we have done it. Find 1 or 2 people that have a similar vision to you. You don't need to find the whole crew. Just find 1 or 2 other people who are excited to build something like this, and just start gathering, whether it's in a weekly group or an event series, so that you have those relationships in place. We spent a long time. So our origin story was Dungeons and Dragons. We ran a Dungeons and Dragons game together for about 3 years before we started to build housing. And by that time, we had very good relationships in place. Tip from us, remember, this is mutual aid, not philanthropy. We're really building our lives together. It's a reciprocal situation. And for us, we really, we don't consider ourselves a program, even though sometimes the outside world likes to think of us as a program. And consensual engagement is a really key part. Once you've got your crew together and maybe you've had a regular potluck and built those sort of organic friendships, then start thinking about your collective vision. And a really important thing to think about is who's missing. So the way the world works is that there's always a certain large swathes of society that are missing. The vision doesn't have to be too controlling. It doesn't have to be too firm. It's just helpful to have a vision for your first 6 months at least. I encourage people to think about the things that are really important to you. What's the deal breakers, and let yourself be fluid on everything else, because ultimately you want your community to be, the form of your community should include all the people involved. And at the beginning, not everyone who's going to be involved is there. And so it's important to allow some elasticity in those things. When you're thinking about who's missing from your social ecosystem and who you want to include, figure out what groups already exist. Sometimes there's reading groups or support circles that you can reach out to, and just put a flyer on their wall and say, hey, we're looking to build community with people. Drop into our potluck if you want to join, or join, here's our WhatsApp community if you're interested, things like that. Yeah, my top tip is don't be afraid to think big, and don't be afraid to start small, and hold those things together. You can have a big lofty vision, and my big lofty vision is much bigger than perhaps what we shared here, but we got there through very, very small steps. We just started a potluck. We just started a Dungeons and Dragons game. And then from there, great things emerged. Find time to gather regularly. Just start hanging out in whatever shape or form. Maybe it's a knitting circle. Maybe it's just a discussion group. Maybe it's just, tea and donuts, and get your people into the same space together. From there, you can listen to what the group is asking for and what they need. Don't be afraid to change direction if that's where the group energy is going. Sometimes, 6 months in, it turns out the group wants to do things slightly differently, and it's okay to change direction. And also, don't worry if no one comes to your things to begin with. Just keep holding space. I can't tell you how many things I've started that for the first 3 months, it was just me on my own. And eventually people do start coming. And now think about building the ecosystem. So once you have a regular space and a proto community, think about how you can serve each other, how you can serve the needs of the group, and how you can amplify the kinds of experiences and wisdoms that you have in that group. So for us, what we discovered is that people coming out of long-term incarceration have extraordinary experiences of self-transformation, and skills in anti-violence training, and self-accountability. And that became a real focus in our community because those were the skills that were present. And that was really lovely. Fight the urge to monetize things unless that's actually the model you want. And for some communities that works well, but just be aware that, you know, the sort of like incentives of this world will nudge you in that direction, and you don't have to go that way if you don't want to. Fight the urge. Sorry, go ahead.
What does that mean? Like in your case, does that mean like fight the urge to charge more in rent, for example, in a community? Or
yeah. So I can give you an example. So in one of the community spaces below Template House, we have a commercial space which is called the Radical Reading Room, and we set that up, and we wanted it to be a free and public space. We wanted it to be a liberatory space that anyone could come. And, you know, we have to pay the rent. And so everything is incentivizing us to charge people to come in or charge people for events. But that starts to interfere with the ethos of the space. And so we have decided that we are going to use a patronage model. And so we have patrons who sign up to contribute a monthly amount. And that's what keeps the space free for everybody. And what I mean is that a lot of the sort of internalized default models of how we make things sustainable in the world are to monetize them. And that's fine if that's what you want, and that's fine if that's what works for your community. But if that's not what you want, push yourself to think about the other models that you can come up with.
Be creative.
Yeah, be creative. And if you feel stuck, then reach out to other people that you see who are finding alternative models. Yeah. So this is a sort of diagram of what our Second Life community looks like, actually. This is what it really looks like on the inside. So we've got these houses, and then we have support circles. Some people come to the support circles, some people don't. Some people just come to the D&D games and the board gaming evenings. Some people come to the house meetings, some people don't. And you don't have to look at this too closely. What I really wanted to convey here is that we let people engage in the ways that are meaningful to them. And overall, we have a sort of rich ecosystem of participation, but we haven't forced everyone to take part in every aspect of this community. And that allows people to sort of come to us and us to meet them where they're at with their sort of availability. Think about your values as a community, and don't get too caught up being, you know, trying to concretize these on day one. Your values as a community will evolve as you evolve also. These are ours that I can share with you just for inspiration. You don't have to take these, but this is what we settled on for us. And then from there, we really think about the emotional ecology. Like, what are the specific needs and injuries that your community needs to heal from, and really focus on investing on that healing work. So for us, this was like scarcity mindset. People have been deprived of a lot of things, internalized depression, navigating substance use spaces, inclusivity, access to sex, love, and affection is a huge part of the healing work that is present in our community, as people have really been deprived of this. Thinking about relationships that are not coercive, thinking about biofamilies and reconnecting with children. These are all themes that have come up for us in our community, but everybody's community is going to have different aspects. And that's sort of it for the overview of the guidebook. It's a living document, so we continue to add our learnings in as we go.
Okay, great. So what you just presented was the overview, and then you go more in detail into the handbook.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Because I could imagine for some people it's like, whoa, that was a lot of steps trying to keep up. But don't worry, it's in the guidebook, and there's a lot more there.
Yes, and I think in the guidebook it's got, you know, example events you can host for your emotional support circles, but also there's a link to my booking link, and if anyone's feeling stuck or just needs some cheerleading, you can just book a call and I'll cheer you on.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love that you do that. Yay. Good. Good to know that you're out there as a resource. And what I took away a few things from just what you presented. I really like the slide where I think it was like, think big, start very small.
Mhm.
Put that on my refrigerator for
Mhm.
everything I want to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And also what I got out of it was this idea of staying flexible,
Mhm.
that the community or the group is its own living thing with the people that are part of it. And it may not be exactly how you imagine it right now.
Mhm.
Being open enough for that change to occur. I think a lot of the times I've seen new intentional community founders who put a lot of work into like figuring out the entire system and all the different roles in the community and what the like garden's going to look like and the architecture and just all these little pieces, and then they kind of miss the possibility for the community to take a shape beyond what they could
Yes.
imagine.
Yes. And yeah, so I often think about the role that I hold in stewarding intentional community almost as like it's about creating, your goal is to create a garden. My role is to just like make sure that the soil has been tilled and then whatever grows there can grow there. And sometimes you need a trellis, and cool, we have a trellis, we've got a list of like different food systems you could use, or here's a list of different food suppliers, or here's some financial tools that have worked in the past. And so providing what I think Rich Bartlett calls minimum viable structure. What is the minimum viable structure that a garden needs for a beautiful sort of menagerie of different plants to grow, which is very different from, I have a vision, here's the rules, here's the deal, this is where we get cheese from, go. And so I think for me, intentional community is about creating the sort of fertile soil for a form of collective flourishing, and you just can't know what that's going to look like until the plants start growing.
Yes, here. Yeah, I see we're getting some thumbs up from people as well. Yeah, creating the conditions for growth, tending the soil, and then allowing the community to emerge and all the plants as they will. Yeah. So how do you, like, what is, for other people who want to be like you and want to tend community in a similar way, like, what would you offer to them as advice on, maybe drawing from your own journey that you took to get to where you are now? And also, I'm just so curious about like a day in your life too, but maybe that's a separate question. So you could do the first one first.
Yeah, I mean, I think the journey for me in intentional community building has been a practice of perhaps letting go of knowing. So much of our other parts of our life is like, I have a goal to become a teacher. I will do this. I know what the outcome looks like. It looks like this. Or I have a goal to whatever it is, right? It's very goal oriented. And intentional community, I think, is more a practice of, being okay with uncertainty, which is like, okay, I'm going to trust this process. I'm going to bring some people together. We're going to cook together, and then we're going to think about what we want to do. And you sort of can't really know what that thing is going to be until you get there. And that's been a really wonderful and unexpected process of coming to psychological peace with emergence, and the kind of wonderful beauty that can come from emergence. But it does take a bit of letting go and trusting the process and trusting each other. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. Yeah, coming to peace with emergence. Yeah, I'm a very goal-oriented person, so I could feel my anxiety building a little bit while you were talking. And yeah, that's the work. Yeah, to allow for emergence to happen. Aw. And I see we do have a question here in the chat. Let me just, here I can do this neat thing where I can pull it up. So Karuna asks, how to determine one's minimum viable structure for a different community? What criteria or questions to ask?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's, unfortunately, my answer is it's different for everyone. So building life with people coming out of long-term incarceration, it was easy for me to just be like, hey, you all, we're free now, we can do anything. But actually that was very stressful. for people. And so we developed this sort of framework that we call stewarded autonomy, which is, the agony of choice when you're deprived of everything, going from I'd never choose where my toilet roll comes from or what food I eat or what time I go to bed, to complete sovereignty is actually very stressful. And so we gathered and we talked about this, and I said, look, this is where we're going to get to. We're going to end up in a place where we're taking care of our finances, and maybe some of you want to join some of the legal structures that run this house, but from where we are now to that place, that path can take as long as you want. It can be a fluid, flexible path. It doesn't have to grow linearly. And let's figure it out together. And different people had different requests for the kinds of structure we have. So for us, our minimum viable structure is we have shared food and shared utilities. We take care of the collective space together. And we have house meetings and we make decisions together. And that was enough of a loose structure that allowed everybody to step into that process. And I think if we put more in place, it would have felt a little bit too oppressive. And that's what worked for us. And slowly over the years, people feel ready to sort of take on ownership and participation, and that's worked really well.
Okay, great. What is your decision-making process in your community?
So each of the 3 houses that I talked about have slightly different governance structures, but loosely we tend to have a duocratic. For any reversible decisions, anything that's easy to undo, we empower people to be doers. And so a good duocracy is communication. I'm going to do this thing, and trying to do things that you think will be celebrated, not to misuse the duocratic structure just because you can do. If you know everyone's going to hate it, don't do it. But if try and be celebrated as a doer is the ethos behind our duocracy. And then for anything that's hard to reverse, we lean into consensus. So new housemates, for example, is a full consensus process that takes many conversations, and we treasure our consensus building process because we reserve it for sort of like really path changing decisions, and so we have those like rough 2 tiers of decision making.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I love duocracy, and I always forget that word actually, and that's what I feel my community here practices more than anything else. And sometimes when we're talking about decision-making structures in community, it's always like, oh, sociocracy, and like that's what the best thing is to do. And remember that that's a very formal structure, which is good in some cases, but there's so much that we can feel just empowered to do, and that can create a lot more freedom and ease in some cases when, like you said, handled with responsibility and doing the things that you think would be celebrated. Yeah, great. And I love that you lean into consensus, even though it can be a longer process. It can feel worth it when it's an important decision.
Yeah, I think you don't want to burn all your consensus making energy on things that aren't really crucial to all of you, that you don't want to be represented in. It's really easy to be so exhausted by your decision making process that by the time the crucial decisions happen, you've sort of run out of energy.
Great. Okay, I see that Betsy has asked a really juicy question. Just going right for it. Thank you, Betsy. So Betsy is asking us, money or sex, which have been the most challenging or enabling to address?
Sex.
Okay.
Yeah. Hang on, Betsy, do you mean access to sex or biological sex?
Giving Betsy a minute to type.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people are I think a lot of people in this world are not having their intimate needs met, whether those are friendship, whether that's cuddles, whether that's sex, whether that's romance, whether that's parenting partners. I think most people find it hard to get your full needs met in that domain. And for us in our community, decades of being deprived of this is, it's just an extraordinary experience for people. And so finding partnership and sort of healing what is called skin hunger, the deprivation of touch, is a huge part of the sort of healing process in our community. And of course, there's no infrastructure for this, so there's like funding you can go to, or you can get stuff from the city, or you can do a GoFundMe when it comes to money. Those kinds of things don't exist for the other ways that we're deprived in this world. And so, yeah, it's hard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Betsy, for that question. It's, I think oftentimes when I'm imagining community, it's really about imagining the whole of humans and our life cycles and all the experiences that we have, and community, especially the really like more intimate, like in a house together kind of community that you have there. It's brings up all kinds of things.
Yeah, and I think, so we often talk about, I'm from England, and so we have a welfare state. So the state provides a lot of things that is not provisioned for in the US. But even in the US, there's some things that the state or the US could provision for, housing, perhaps, right? And so the state can provide housing, but it cannot provide home. The state can provide social workers and things like that, but they can't provide friendship. And so there's all of these things that cannot be just sort of provisioned for you, that we have to build together. We have to build them in common. And this is the work of the intentional community, I think, is to think about how we provision for things that we can only build in common. How do you provide income to pay the bills? Yeah.
How we provision for things that can only be found in common. Yeah, I love that. Great. Now he's taking from the lofty. Let's go down to the practical here. And asks, how do you generate income to pay the bills?
Mm-hmm. So each of
the side of the question.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So all of our houses are financially self-determined, so they run their own finances. And the long and short of it is that people pay rent, and that pays the bills. So rent is something that we decide together internally. We sort of sit down and we're like, this is what our rent is. How do we want to divvy it up? And oftentimes we will have people be like, well, I've got more money, so I don't mind paying a bit more. And so we make those decisions internally. And then we all contribute a collectively decided community fee, which pays for our shared food and our utilities. We have a small supplies account for, tools and things like that. And again, that's sort of decided collectively. And we have a bank account that we put all that money into, and then that's sort of managed between us. And then I think sometimes if we want to do things that sort of step outside of that financial model, so we're trying to get a hot tub put in our garden right now, we'll, do something like host a dinner as a fundraiser and be like, help us get our hot tub installed, and things like that. We do have this commercial space below the residential area of Template that we could tentatively run a business in. If we wanted to. I haven't really got space to take on a new project, but it would be kind of wonderful to have a sort of cooperative little business running in the commercial space that could help fund some of the other communal projects. But that's just a hope and a dream right now.
Gotcha. Okay. How do the rent prices in general in the communities compare to rent prices in the area in general? And have you ever thought about, or do you do already, more of a dynamic renting price structure based on income level? How does that work?
Yeah, we've tried lots of those. I think our rent is like fairly normal compared to San Francisco, and bearing in mind that San Francisco rent is not normal. So it's locally appropriate and globally inappropriate. And yeah, we have done a fair amount of sort of thinking about why rent is divvied up the way it is. At the embassy, for example, some years ago, we tried a model where we just decided what. So we started off thinking like, oh, maybe we should have rent divided up by income rather than the size of your room. And then we sort of realized that lots of people have got debt and things like that. And there's all these other factors that play into it. And so we ended up settling on an idea that we should just all pay what we thought we should pay, and then scale it up to cover the amount that needs to get paid. And we did that for 6 months. It was very interesting. And you know, it is worth trying these different things because you learn a lot about what feels fair and what feels unfair, and the sort of weird emotional experiences that come up when you self-decide these things. You know, we like to rally against the sort of rules, but actually when you're making those decisions for yourself, it comes with emotional experiences that are surprising sometimes. And certainly at Template and Sigil, we make those decisions together. And so sometimes someone will be short of money and everybody else will pitch in so that their rent is a bit less while they're short of money. And so we largely take care of each other in that way.
Okay. So more, a conversation, or when a need arises, then there's that duocracy, or that empowerment to step in and support.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I have another question for you that maybe is a good one to wrap up on. So I caught earlier when you were presenting, you had mentioned something like, you know, my vision is even bigger than what we have created now. But by starting small, we've been able to do so much. And it got me curious about what is your, like, Zarina, what is your bigger vision? Like, what is it? What is the bigger, aim that you're working towards with all of this?
Yeah, I think my bigger vision, you know, I think of our intentional communities as spaces where we can create a little bubble that is separate from the rest of the world, where we can explore why things are the way they are, and we can try things differently. And then when we start to create relationships between our intentional communities, then we start to build ecosystems of sharing and kinship and resilience. And as those ecosystems get larger, you're starting to see actually like new economic systems forming. You know, we have a little food share going on with some of the other community houses near us, and we happen to have a garage, and so we order a ton of food, and then other people come and get the food, and so you're starting to see different forms of sharing and kinship happen between the houses. And then I think for me, the larger vision is something along the lines of community homes are a form of home economics that prop up our larger economic system. And so they have a tremendous capacity to change and shape our society. And I'd love to see a proliferation of these kinds of spaces that are not just reclaiming our capacity for kinship and care, but are also reclaiming a sort of economic system that serves life. And I guess, I think the power, if you think about how widespread the nuclear family is, and then you start to think, well, what if actually intentional community was something as widespread as that the whole fabric of society would start to look really, really different, And so my hope for intentional community is that it is both a sort of like petri dish for us to try all these different kinds of ways of living and self-governing, but also that if we all sort of join hands and be in collaboration, that we create a really rich, diverse form of society that could be really transformative if we let it be.
Yes. Hear. May it be so. Oh, love that. Do you have a sense from where you sit that that's happening, that it's growing, that these communities are proliferating? Because I get that sense, but I'm like so biased, right? Because of where I sit. What do you think?
Yes, I do think that's. I think the energy is there. So a couple of things. One is that, you know, something I witness is that the intergenerational lifespan of communities is quite short. So you often see, you know, the 70s communes aren't around anymore, and we don't have any information from the 70s or the 80s communes or the 90s communes, you know, so that the intergenerational learnings is often lost. And I think that is part, you know, and we don't see that with the nuclear family, right? The nuclear family, we're like, we know our grandparents and we know the lessons from our grandparents. And so there's this intergenerational passing on of knowledge and traditions that makes it feel really easy for the next generation. They just know what to do. We don't really have that for intentional community, which is partly why I'm passionate about the community land trust model, because I think that is the thing that allows us to pass on both buildings and humans and knowledge to the next generation that are going to be building in this space. I also think, you know, we have a lot of like housing law and various like ways in which the systems in place don't protect intentional communities and sometimes threaten intentional communities. And so whilst I see a lot of energy to build, and I am seeing a lot of proliferation, there's a lot of community houses in the Bay Area and all across the US. We're also up against some challenges, and I think if we want to see this proliferation sustain, we have to start thinking about the infrastructure, the legal entities, the intergenerational wisdom, housing law, and things like that are going to support this way of life.
Yeah, we sure do. Yeah, you're reminding me, on Thursday, actually, we're hosting a workshop with a woman, Sarah Wells in Denver, who's a real estate agent who is directly trying to confront and untangle these housing laws that make it really hard for intentional communities to get started and get sustained. So yeah, I appreciate all of us working on these different aspects of the problem so that we can allow for, because it wants to happen. Like you said, the energy is there. It's just like creating that fertile soil and all the conditions for the garden to flourish. Yes. All right. Well, thank you, Zarina. I'll let you go. And thank you, everyone, for participating and listening. Thank you for the work that you're doing, all of you in your different communities out there. Really glad that you're here. Hope you got some inspiration, some nuggets of wisdom. Hope to see you back next month for our next Blueprints for Belonging event. And yes, thank you, Zarina. Thank you for your time and everything that you're doing. Appreciate you. Okay. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Yes, and please come visit. Bye-bye.